They say the boy does not truly become a man until his father dies. My father died over a packet of chips. It was in that moment and from that moment that I could stand on my own. And don't worry, my dad's still alive. I'll explain more shortly.
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello and welcome to an on-the-couch edition of the Share.care podcast. Our belief is that global peace starts at home. Feeling safe, valued, and heard gives you the foundation to confidently step out and make the world a happier and safer place for everyone. Because in today's world, it's in your own selfish best interest to help others. I want to start and cover off this episode by saying it is a little bit gender biased. You've probably noticed that I'm a male. I'm not in a position to talk about a woman's right of passage to become an adult. And it would be inappropriate for me to even assume to do so. So what I can do is share my journey to becoming a man. Now, thinking about my childhood and thinking back to things that stood out, especially to do with my father, the first memory that I have is actually when I was an infant. I was very young. I don't really remember much. I know that I was being held by my dad. I can feel that somehow. I know that it's my dad. I believe he was having a beer at that time, and I believe it was a Melbourne Bitter. I have this image in my mind of my dad's hand. I can see my dad's hand. I'm sitting on his lap, and I can see this amber bottle with a red logo, which I'm assuming was a Melbourne Bitter. And my dad gave me a sip. I think I was violently ill to that. And it was probably from that moment that, through my childhood and early teenagerhood, or late teenagerhood, I should say, even into my mid-20s, where I wasn't able to drink beer. I wasn't able to smell beer. It made me nauseous. And I think it was because of that incident when I was, and then that's my first memory with my father. But there's lots of other memories that I've had as well. I remember we grew up in a country town, and my dad was building a new shed out the back, and he was making the foundation. So he dug the old shed. We had this old wooden shed that he'd torn down, and I think I helped pull it down a little bit, or done something to pull it down with him. But I do remember he'd made a foundation for this new shed, a bigger foundation because it was a bigger shed. And I was out there working with him, and we were compacting it down and making the area flat. And I remember saying to him, because I was quite tired, I was getting worn out. And I remember saying to my dad, I said, "Dad, don't you ever get tired?" And he goes, "No, son, I don't get tired." And it was like, I wanted to be like that. It's like, I'm going to not get tired. And I think that's something that drove me as I was growing up, and certainly and as an adult. It's always, I was feeling tired and I wanted to do something. I just pushed through it because I wanted to be like my dad. And we have that. I remember walking home. I think we're coming from Scouts. No, I wasn't Scouts. I would have been younger, too young for that. I remember I was really little. We were walking down. I remember walking the street, and I remember walking beside my dad, and I noticed the steps that he was taking. So, and I was trying to take the same size steps, and it was just, yeah. I remember doing that. I was like, I'm going to be like my dad and take those same size steps. And other things that stood out, I remember in front of our house, we would be playing, there was a group of us playing, kids playing cricket. We had a bin set up as you did, and playing cricket, and we were running along the footpath, and I remember, with my dad, and trying to outrun and get there before he got me out, and similar sort of thing with him chasing me out the front of the house. I remember there was one time I was trying to run and hide from him, and he's trying to catch me, and I'm pretty sure that he was letting me get away a little bit, but it was just that excitement of being with my dad. And as I got older, I remember, I used to. My dad would go and play. They had a social golf club. The town we were in didn't have its own golf club, and he was the town did have a social. Or the men had a social golf club. I'm sure the ladies did too, but certainly the guys would get together. The people that played work, and they'd go off and play golf at different clubs around the traps. And I remember I got, I don't know why, I started playing a little bit of golf and practicing golf, but then for some reason, like when I got to go with my dad to play golf with his mates, and it was, I don't actually remember going around the golf course. I'm sure the first few times I went around with my dad, but then after that, it became I went around I played golf. I was paired in fours. I was paired up with some of the guys, and we'd go around and play golf. And then we'd go do the 18 holes, and at the end of that, we'd all meet up at the clubhouse, and they'd go in the bar and do their presentations and stuff like that. And I would join them and be part of that group. And I mean, obviously, it wasn't drinking; they were having a drink, and I was too young to do that. And it was a similar experience too when my dad transitioned out of golf and started playing lawn bowls. I would go and play with my dad. And I would be part of the competitions playing with my dad, where it was fit, but I would be part of that. But same token too, it would be like it wouldn't be necessarily playing the game with my dad. So I might be paired off with other people or part of a four with other people, and but we'd be at the same club playing together, which was the nice memories to look back on. And there was a lot of things like that stood out for me with my dad, and we had a lot of fun. And I remember, like, when I think about the home life, I don't remember my dad ever yelling at me. He certainly wasn't the disciplinarian in the house. That was my mum's job. My mum she had made a choice. My parents, for whatever reason, they'd made the choice that, well, my mum, I know she wanted to when she became a parent, she wanted to be a parent that was there with the children. She wanted to always be with the children, and she did that to the extent of after my parents split up, even for a large period of time, she did not date anyone. She didn't go out with anyone because she didn't want other people. As she said, she didn't want us to have a bunch of uncles. I'm not sure what she was thinking with that. Like, a lot of men, but and obviously, I mean, when you meet people, sometimes I'm guessing she was thinking you meet people and things don't work out, and she didn't want that. So she was quite committed in what she wanted and very strong in what she wanted. And I admire that about my mum. She was very much a woman, but very much there was an equality there in the way she dealt with things. She did things because she wanted to, not because anything was imposed on her to do it. And she made that choice. She wanted to be a parent, a parent that looked after the children. That there was always a parent there at home when they come home from school, that kind of thing. And she did work as well in between things when she wanted to. And but she was a disciplinarian, and I remember that very. I remember the wooden spoon. We got the wooden spoon. I wasn't the best boy. I probably had a naughty streak, and the wooden spoon came out a few times. And if I remember correctly, it's a long time ago now. The wooden spoon broke once when I was getting whacked on the bum with it. And I used to joke it's because I farted and she hit me with a spoon, and that broke the wooden spoon. And so she was a disciplinarian, and I don't remember my dad ever being that disciplinarian at home. So he wasn't. I don't ever remember him yelling at me. I don't remember. He certainly never whacked us or anything like that. And it was always, I think, deferred to and I think it came from when my dad talks about his um, family life and the family life he grew up in, and it was very much. He said, his dad or my grandfather always said to him, "Your mum, do what your mum says. Your mum is in charge." And to the extent of from as I understand it, my grandfather didn't go to church. I'm Polish, mostly Polish background, a bit of Ukraine and Russian. But so it was very Catholic in that Polish upbringing. And my grandmother went to church every Sunday. And my dad said, "Yes, you will go to church with your mum. You will do what she says." And maybe that's where that come from in my upbringing as well. Dad kind of stepped back, and it was my mum who was the disciplinarian. Now things changed a little bit when my parents split up, and um, and that was a time. Well, initially we lived with our mum. There was four of us kids, and we lived with our mum. And then when we moved back close to where my dad was, we would spend, obviously we'd spend time with dad as well. I don't remember exactly how that worked, and like a roster or anything like that, but we did spend time with dad. But then there was a period as I'm entering or in teenagerhood, I'd switch between the two parents. I think whenever I got upset with one parent, I would go and live with the other one, and then vice versa. And it's and even in that time there, I don't remember my dad being um, like yelling or anything like that, but I do remember. I mean, there was obviously a teenage rebellious thing that I went through, and like most teenagers, and you're finding your own way and what's right for you, and no one can tell you. Well, from my perspective, no one could tell me what to do. Although that lasted a bit longer than teenagerhood, and my uh, it's and so when I'm thinking about this relationship that I had with my dad, and there was always this need to live up to him or to what he wanted. Now, I'm not sure where that came from, but it was always I felt a need to justify myself, justify that this is what I'm doing is the right thing to do. That I had to like we having a conversation. I'd have to argue my point. I have to prove that my point is right. Um, and just it was something that it would it would bother me. It was like you need to listen to me, and this whole process of needing to justify myself. It's like I'm doing this because I want, because this is why I'm doing it. I'd give this long explanation as to why it's the right thing to do, and trying to explain that, and waiting for that, and partly wanting that approval, going, yeah, that I agree with you, and that kind of thing. And so that was kind of how that relationship went on for quite a period of time, where it's like no matter what it was even when my dad wasn't there, I'd be having conversations with myself about, okay, this is why I'm doing that, and I'm playing out a conversation with my dad, explaining why I'm doing something, even though he's not there. I mean, he's not even I was in a different state at times, and I'm explaining in my head to my dad, justifying why I'm doing this. And it was always that, this need to justify, this need to explain, to rationalize why this is right, whatever it is I was doing. It was like I had to rationalize why it was the right thing to do. And there was a period I was in between houses. I think I'd sold one house and I was buying another house or something like that. And there was a period where I wasn't, um, I didn't have a place to live. So I'd moved in with my dad in my dad's house. And we would, we got along fine. It wasn't any arguments, things like that, went around and do things. And I would go to the shop and buy things that I wanted for food and things like that. And I remember very distinctly that I was in the kitchen and I bought a packet of Pringles chips, which, were quite expensive compared to what my dad was quite frugal and he'd always buy no name stuff. So there was, when he bought packets of chips, it'd be no name chips, that kind of thing. And I'm eating Pringles, which is, a lot big step up from no name chips, but I like them and I wanted to eat them. So I'm sitting there or standing in the kitchen, leaning against the bench, eating these Pringles out of the packet. I can't remember, I wasn't really doing anything. I think I was looking out the window, having a bit of a stare, just relaxing. And in walks my dad. And he looks at me, he does whatever he's doing, he looks at me, goes, looks at the chips, looks me up and down, looks at the chips again, and then says, "Why eating them? They're expensive." And something had changed in that moment. And I don't know what it was. I don't know why or how this all came about. But I had no need to justify. I had no need to explain, to give a long-winded explanation. And I just turned to my dad and very calmly, very politely, I said, "I like them." And he said, "Yeah, but they're expensive. Why are you eating them? They're expensive." And I, again, didn't try and justify, why they're better or why, all these reasons I could have come up with. And in the past, I would have spent probably 5 or 10 minutes explaining why it doesn't matter that they're expensive. They're a better quality chip and they're this and that, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be explaining it. I didn't do any of that. I just calmly said, "I like them." No pushing, no aggravation, just, "I like them." And he looked at me, he goes, "Oh, okay." And he walked off. And it was in that moment, it was like, that's the moment I really, in one sense, my dad died, um, metaphorically speaking, and I became a man because I knew what was right for me. And this was the distinction that was made. I knew what was right for me. I didn't need to explain it. I didn't need to justify it. And that was, that point where I didn't need his approval anymore. I knew what was right for me. So I didn't have to justify it. I didn't have to explain it. And that's how I knew I was a man. Because I could look in the mirror and I knew what was right for me.
Thank you for being part of the Share.Care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes for others and for you.